Donald Trump's feelings got hurt today, and now the whole world has to hear about it. At the US Open, the White House actually told the media to block out any sound of Trump being booed. But here's the thing. He got booed so loudly that every TV screen in America blasted it at full volume. And honestly, it was hilarious. To make it even better, Trump completely lost it afterward. He jumped online and started rage posting, denying he was booed, and firing off one wild tweet after another. We'll go through those in a minute. But before we dive in, do me a quick favor, hit that like button. And if you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. It really helps support what we're doing here. Now, back to the chaos. Today's stunt at the US Open blew up in Trump's face and ended with a full-on posting meltdown. But before I break down those tweets, let's rewind a bit. There's another stunt brewing in Baltimore, where Trump is already getting called out by Governor Wes Moore. And the way Moore shut him down,
that the president, when you're looking at the big, beautiful bill, it actually cut $30 million of funding for violence prevention programs that are happening in the city of Baltimore and across the state of Maryland. And when I first came on board, I was very clear that public safety was going to be our #1 priority. And we have made historic investments in local law enforcement, historic investments in technologies and making sure that if someone commits a violent crime with a handgun, we want them in handcuffs in 24 hours. So the work is happening. And actually, if you're looking at the same time period of this D.C. occupation, this federal surge, if you look at assaults with a deadly weapon, they've actually increased in D.C. by 8%, in Baltimore have decreased by 10%, and on every other major indicator, from homicides to carjackings, you say that Baltimore has actually had the same type of drop as Washington, D.C. has had during this period, and we didn't mobilize the National Guard for it.
Well, it seems like
we can't let Donald Trump control the narrative on crime. He is trying to convince people that he's the only one in America who can keep them safe. It's not true, and it's not new. He spins up these lies, hoping they'll stick. The reality is Democrats should be winning this issue. In cities like D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, New York, and across the country, Democratic mayors have seen crime drop to historic lows. And none of that had anything to do with Donald Trump or his so-called invasion of thugs. That isn't a real plan. Not a policy with any clear path to safer communities. What Trump wants is intimidation. He wants to set the stage for declaring martial law, for acting like a king over America. His real goal, and that's why Democrats can't stay silent when he pulls these stunts. We saw that play out today at the US Open. And before we even get into how Trump jumped online to deny it, let's start with what actually happened. He was loudly booed. And to borrow his own word, it was beautiful BOOS.
the president is not backing down on this policy. In fact, I want to show you a post. This was posted yesterday. President Trump shared this on his social media account. It's directed at Chicago, and it reads, quote, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning, and Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Illinois Governor Pritzker called this a threat. Would you go so far as to call this a threat?
I call it a threat. I call it embarrassing. I would call it performative. And I do want to be clear about some of the stats. When people talk about how we watched a decrease because of the National Guard, let's be clear about some of the stats. That the National Guard are responsible during this occupation for 744 cubic yards of mulch spread, 886 bags of trash collected, 270 feet of fence painted. You know what we don't have stats on? How many illegal guns has the National Guard seized? How many drug busts has the National Guard done? How
and
many
yet
arrests?
Crime is down in D.C.
Oh, as it is in Baltimore. And in fact, if you're looking at the crime numbers in Baltimore, they're down around the same percentage from D.C. during the surge. And we did not have to ask these citizen soldiers to give up their lives and ask the American people to pay well over $1 million a day so we could have fences painted.
Donald Trump, from owning the narrative on crime and deciding that he is the only one in America that can keep anyone safe. That's the story he wants to push, and it's built on lies. The truth is, Democrats should actually be winning this debate. In cities like D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, New York, and across the country, Democratic mayors have overseen historic drops in crime. None of that has anything to do with Donald Trump or his so-called invasion of thugs. Not a policy, It's not a plan. It's intimidation, plain and simple. His goal is to set the stage to declare martial and position himself as a king over America. That's what he wants. And that's why, and Democrats can't stay quiet when he pulls these stunts. Take today, for example. At the US Open, Trump tried to put on a show. His response? Loud, unmistakable boos, what he himself would probably call beautiful boos. Before we even get to the part where he denied it online, let's sit with that moment of thousands of people making it clear they weren't buying what he was selling. Now, that seemed pretty clear, right? You can't miss the moment when the national anthem was playing and Donald Trump appeared on the big screen. The crowd reacted immediately. It was loud, clear, and unmistakable. Headlines from the US Open highlighted the moment everywhere. Trump was met with boos, repeated across reports, including coverage from the White House press pool. So how is Trump responding? In the way he usually does, sharing his side without presenting supporting facts.
Rapid Response 47, the official White House account, responded, "All these fake news losers do is lie because their pea-sized brains have been irreversibly destroyed by Trump derangement syndrome. This is how it aired on TV. Note the cheers."
I can't show the ESPN clip, but it's Trump getting booed. Even the White House posted it. ESPN's stream, they cut the sound, fake crowd noise. Why? Because Trump can't be seen embarrassed. That's authoritarian. Conservatives whine about free speech, but that's not government censorship. It's society reacting. Supporters say they care about free speech, but actions like muting boos suggest a different story. Senator Tammy Duckworth pointed this out in her response.
Vice President Vance says there aren't plans to send in troops. Do you have concrete indication now that there are plans to do so?
Well, let's make it clear. The President of the United States essentially just declared war on a major city in his own nation. This is not normal, Margaret. This is not acceptable behavior. No, we don't have any indications of them getting ready to send troops into Chicago. In fact, I was out at Great Lakes base yesterday, Naval Training Base, and they were able to confirm that the only assistance they've been requested to provide is just office space for ICE. But that there are no barracks, no detention facilities, none of that is being requested or prepared in order to support troops into Chicago.
So, so then is this just, social media trash talk? When you say he's declaring war, is this tongue in cheek?
I think he's renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War. And did he not just say that Chicago will find out what it means to be at war? I take what the President of the United States says very seriously, because that is the respect you have to give to the office. And if that's what he's declaring, then let me make it clear. It would be an illegal order to declare war on a major city, any city within the United States by the President of the United States.
Senator, I know you just mentioned you went out to the Great Lakes Naval Training Station, I should say, and you said the military leadership said they'll only get office space. ICE cannot bring in lethal munitions, and the resources will not be diverted from military training. So all of that together, did you breathe a sigh of relief and say this won't have a real impact on the military?
Well, we're going to make sure that there's not an impact on the military. We need to make sure that as you know, Great Lakes Naval Training Base is where every single recruit in the United States Navy goes through to get their basic training, and then later on some advanced training. We need to make sure that not a single dollar, not a single penny of the resources that they have that should be directed towards training our nation's sailors and making them ready to do their jobs. None of that money needs to be diverted in order to support ICE or any of Donald Trump's political theater efforts. We need to focus on making sure we turn out the very best sailors we possibly can out of the base.
So in terms of how Democrats are responding to this rhetoric, The Chicago Tribune faulted Governor Pritzker for his threats to, quote, not stand idly by if the guard went in. They wrote, what does that threat actually mean? How about a conversation before the action or the response? Because it's all potentially harmful to collective health. It sounds like there's a lot of tension here. Is there an opportunity to work with the administration to avoid making this worse?
Well, they've not responded to any of our requests. I mean, I'll give you a very concrete example. Senator Durbin, myself, Senator Schneider, Congressman Schneider, sent requests into DHS to ask them to explain what exactly are you going to be doing at Great Lakes, and can we come look at your facility so we have a better understanding of what your operations are. And they replied, no, you can't, and in fact gave their staff the day off on the day that we went to go look at their facilities, and locked the doors and left the base. Basically, they fled the base. This is not the action of someone that's doing something legal or that they're proud of. They literally gave their people the day off, locked the doors, and left. Now, the Navy allowed us onto the post. They allowed us to tour the outside of the facility and also where they would be storing the non-lethal munitions. But DHS did not show up. And we certainly have sent the administration multiple inquiries about what they're planning on doing. Who are they bringing into Chicago? Are they planning to bring the National Guard in? They've done none of that. They've not even reached out to local law enforcement to try to coordinate. You know, if they were truly, truly interested in fighting crime, then they would work with local law enforcement and ask them, what do you need? What help do you need? And we've not gotten any communications or feedback from the administration whatsoever.
I want to ask you in your armed services role about what is a significant geopolitical meeting this past week. You had a lot of America's adversaries gathering together. Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of them in Beijing. And China and Russia seem to be deepening their work together. What do you think the signal to the United States here is?
The signal to the United States is exactly what these authoritarian regimes want to send, which is that they are the new world power, that America is losing its ground, and that they have utter disrespect for the United States. I think it was very, very clear. And it doesn't escape me the fact that once this meeting happened, which was humiliating to Donald Trump, he immediately responds by saying, well, then I'm going to rename the Department of Defense the Department of War and declare war in Chicago. This is what Donald Trump does. When something bad happens to him in the news cycle, or when the Epstein victims come together and have a very emotional press conference, he changes the topic and distracts us by saying things like, I'm going to send ICE into Chicago.